Oh boy, we got a good one for you today, folks. This is great. So the guy or one of the guys who originally claimed that the orcs in D&D or fantasy settings were racist and too much of a allegory to black people or something like that wants more racism in The Witcher TRPG or tabletop role playing game. Okay, this is interesting. So apparently this is the man who knows all about race. He's like the expert when it comes to race. He knows exactly what is racist, what isn't enough racism, what needs more racism. This man is an expert. There's no question about it. We can't possibly question his motives or his tastes or his understanding. I don't know if that's the guy. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised because who the hell knows what people like these would look like. So here's Jason, the okayest painter. Being able to identify and call out racist portrayals makes you racist. Okay. In much the same way as diagnosing a disease makes you actually a pathogen. Alrighty. Or being able to name a bird by its song actually makes you a bird and not a human who can name a thing without being a thing. I think this is just a joke. I think that's the point. Yeah, okay, he's one of the antagonists. So he's making a crack at this kind of fellow. So orcs aren't human, so it's okay to use dehumanizing, othering racist language to describe them as subhuman. Is the same as if 6Fs used to justify using the same language on real people. They aren't human, so it's okay. They're savage. They're other. So this is by Monkey Paw Games. I think this is the gentleman that is saying all these crazy things. They aren't human, so it's okay. They're savage. They're other. I'm not too sure who's thinking about this because we're all talking about a fantasy thing, something which is not real. You can have multiple opinions, good or bad, racial or not, about a fictional species, and that's fine. That's the beauty of it. You're allowed to do that. In fact, it's a big thing in a lot of fantasy stories where the elves don't like the orcs or the dwarves don't like the elves, and it's some long-standing hatred because of a war or some sort of scuffle, and now it's a racial hatred because they've forgotten the reasons and they see an elf and they hate the elf, or they see a dwarf and they hate the dwarf. Doesn't matter. That's kind of how stories like that go. There's a long-standing tradition of peace or war or hatred or love between the races and the species. So this guy keeps going. I'm so effing tired of having to spell this out for y'all dirty-legged thin lips because, calling someone dirty-legged is not racist, and calling someone thin lips is also not racist because this man knows exactly how to insult someone. Maybe if your entire personality didn't revolve around being smug and contrary, because this person knows exactly what's smug and contrary, and he knows it in other people very well. You'd be capable of more than a surface-level understanding of literally anything. I think I would like at least a surface-level understanding of whatever the hell this person is talking about. If you think it's okay in 2020 to justify race science, biological determinism, and dehumanizing, degrading language to describe non-human fantasy species, because, you got to think of the fantasy species, you're hurting their feelings, or use racial tension as a plot point, because you can't write fiction with a plot point where everything builds up to a big, intense stare-off where everyone's looking at each other and they go, "Oh, you've got green skin, you ugly orc." You can't do that because it's 2020, people. You got to think before you write or fantasize or imagine, because wrong think is going to get you in jail. Give me a heads up so I can ridicule you before I block you. Oh, he's going to block you. Oh, what a strong man. What a wonderful, intelligent, passionate, patient fellow. He's going to make fun of you, and then he's going to block you. Just the cream of the crop when it comes to humanity and intelligence. It's the same attempted gotcha every time too. Oh, You think the blacks share the same qualities as fantasy orcs. Well, no, I never thought that, but, that's what you did. That makes you racist. Well, yeah. If you're comparing a real group of people to a fantasy group and you're getting offended, yeah, that would make you racist because you're saying, well, look, they're both the same. And you're like, wait, stop. Slow down. Like, no, you effing herb. Oh, we're herbs now. That's a nice thing to say. A lot of people say the word herb and they mean some form of drug, which makes them feel good. So I guess my soothing voice is making people feel good. I'm an herb. I think the language used to describe fantasy orcs and the same language used to dehumanize black people. Maybe they did, but not to most people, because we never made that connection. You did. So you're the one being offended. You're the one seeing race where it isn't, or the connection between a real group of people and a non-real group of people. So, sir, the onus is on you to prove your story, and you haven't done so. You've been sounding like a crazy person, and having these smiley faces aren't exactly helping your cause. So I opened this book and I found a racism chart. It's like, yeah, they have racism charts in D&D and The Witcher because that's what these stories involve. Dwarves versus certain geographic areas. Dwarves are tolerated but generally liked. Elves are tolerated but generally hated in the north. And humans are liked everywhere except Dol Blathana and Mahakam. That sounds fine. Having regions with predominantly one species or one race and disliking another species or one race for whatever reason sounds like you've got some history there. It sounds like you got some world building. You got some other stories that were told or people know about it. Oh no. Pick your race. Determine that race you want to play. This is an important step because your race determines both your special abilities and how the average person will react to you. And this is a very common element in role-playing games where you choose a quality or a class or a race, and there's upsides and there's downsides. Those upsides could be stats, or those upsides could be social things, and the same with the downsides. So that's the beauty of having role-playing games, or good role-playing games. It's not all positives. It's not all min-maxing. There are actual social things to consider. Giving yourself some depth in your role-playing. Wow, what a great idea. So here's Lauren S. Hissrich, and she is the showrunner, in case you didn't know that, of the Witcher TV series or the Witcher Netflix series. The Witcher is really interesting when it comes to depicting racism because it's about species, not skin color. Okay, I mean, one of the elements or one of the themes of The Witcher is that monsters come in various shapes and sizes. The same with those who are good come in various shapes and sizes, and they could be monsters as well. What makes characters other is the shape of their ears, height, etc. Now, the problem with Lauren here is she doesn't understand the term race or racial. When I am describing your skin tone, when I'm describing your ears, your height, your hair, your style of dress, everything, well, not the style of dress, but your body in general, those are racial qualities. So she just thinks race means skin color, which is fine. People don't understand the full extent of a word. I get that. But for her to say, hey, The Witcher isn't racist, what makes it good is that it's not racist and instead talks about your ears and how tall you are. In the book, no one pays attention to skin color. In the series, no one does either. Period. Well, I haven't read all the books, so I can't say what exactly the reactions of elves and dwarves and what have you are. But according to this, which is the Witcher racial map, apparently humans in the north don't really like the elves. They kind of hate them. Why is that, do you think? Well, there could be reasons, but ultimately it comes down to a racial element. You see an elf, they're not a human. And you could characterize them or you can describe them by how they physically look, which are racial elements. So believe it or not, fantasy stories have racial elements. It's an allegory, it's a literal interpretation, it's all sorts of things. You can get away with that in fiction. It's not real. And of course, we have our genius racist Grand Poobah of all things orc. I feel like these games don't lean into the racial hatred enough, capital enough. If we're Fina, if we're Finna, I think he means finally, but he didn't have enough words or letters. If we're finally going to talk about how much I'm hated in the North for being an elf, I want to know the degree for which I'm hated. So this guy is now he has the exact opposite. Not only is it okay to be an elf and be racially hated, he wants to know the flavor of hatred. He wants to know the intensity of the hatred. He wants the backstory. I'm thinking, hey, you know what? That's a good thing. You want to know why there are tensions and conflict in a story. Exactly. But apparently, this is a horrible idea for orcs. Great for elves, bad for orcs. It sounds like Monkey Paw might have some problem with, I don't know, races. He prefers certain races over others. As if he's, I don't know, maybe a bit racist himself. The game has a 30-step flowchart for hitting someone with a sword. I want one for racism. I don't think there's a roll your die for racism check whenever you enter a town. There could be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe some DMs do that. As soon as you enter Skellige, boom, you're attacked by dwarves. You happen to be an elf. Roll for initiative. I don't know. How much am I hated for being an elf in the North? Is it I can't catch a cab? Are there cabs in The Witcher? People can't pronounce my name sort of racism? Are they burning upside down crosses on my lawn? Do the local constabulary stop and frisk me? Am I prevented from buying property in nice neighborhoods? These are all good questions. And I'm sure a good DM would have a good answer to that. And it seems like he's interested in playing this game because he's all for racism. He's like, yeah, I can't wait to play this game with all this racism. It's great. This is very strange. Like one day you hate racism in one game, but in another game it's like, oh, I can't wait to be a racist dwarf walking around elven lands. It'd be great. I can't wait to be hated. Maybe he knows what being hated is like online, and he wants to roleplay that in another setting. Who knows? Maybe he wants to, do dual axe wielding on a certain elven corpse. I don't know. When me and my elf friends have a barbecue, is there a Witcher calling bylaw to make noise complaints? Okay, now I just think he's being stupid or trying to be funny. It's not very effective because it's like the level of racism is just like the guy can't shut up about racism. It's like he has to talk about it. Why is it fantastic racism? Why is it fantastic racism is so necessary to have a game that feels gritty and real? But every game like this spends less time on the impact of that racism than inventory management. Okay, so when racism is an allegory for black people, that's bad, or apparently an allegory. We have no idea what he's talking about in the D&D reality. But when it comes to The Witcher, he's all in. He's like, I want like charts. I want to have this, call for initiative on how racist the people think of me as soon as I enter their town. Why isn't it as sophisticated as an inventory management? Like he is all in. This is getting intense. I hate to break to you, but they actually give mechanical guidelines right above the charts. This guy's like, we already have that. Some DM figured that out. It's in the guidebook. Have fun. And then they look at the guidebook and they go, hey, wait a second. You got Pondsmith and Pondsmith here. And if you don't realize that, that's the same name as Mike Pondsmith, the creator of Cyberpunk, the tabletop, as well as I think it's Cyberpunk Red coming out. I could be wrong. I don't know if it's out yet. But this is Mike Pondsmith's son, and I believe his wife. So they wrote the stuff for the tabletop version of that. This is Mike's company, and that's his spouse and kid, apparently, meaning a black person was half the design team in Jest. Not what I expected when I went to the front cover after that chart. Okay, fine. So this was a meme popularized by Issa Rae. I don't know who that is. Deep, heavy, Negro spiritual sigh. So this guy is just so racist. He just loves making racial memes. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because again, I don't know where he's coming from. He hates racism one day, he loves it the other, because it's a different game world. I don't get it. I wish I could tell. Then we have Brianna Starlight. I don't know who this is supposed to be. Just saw this on my TL, and honestly not surprised. Mike Pondsmith is well liked by reactionaries and fascists, and his cyberpunk setting is considered prophetic in those spaces. I think Mike is a really humble, smart, passionate dude, and he's really friendly, and he goes out and talks to everyone, and obviously he's a black guy. He knows all about these inequalities and problems, and he brings it into his work, and that's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with talking about these elements, especially in a cyberpunk setting where everything's different, everything's a mishmash, and you don't know what to expect, where racial issues are almost irrelevant because you have guys with like chainsaw arms coming at you. So this is what he wrote. It is now accepted among historical scholars that in the decades before the collapse, America suffered from the sicknesses of racism and cultural identity. Everyone wanted to be seen as special. Every group had to be equal or preferably better than its neighbors, and fought to protect its special rights. If anyone had something that someone else wanted, they were painted as racist, sexist, elitist, or worse. The divisive me-first attitude eventually tore the fabric of American culture apart and caused it to self-destruct in a fireball of competing ideologies, none of which truly recognized each other's validity. Diversity led inexorably to anarchy. Like, that's a pretty, I wouldn't say prophetic, but a pretty scary future. If we are so stupid, if we are so blind that we have differing opinions that we will want to hurt each other, that is strange. And I can't see that coming from anyone on the right or anyone in the middle. This is completely people who are extremists, who are left-leaning, who are progressivists, who take things to the extreme. And we see that with the Black Lives Matter group or various other extreme groups who are destroying private and public property, who scream at the top of their lungs just for you being different or thinking differently. It's a strange behavior. I've encountered that in Canada as well. It's just more aggressive and passionate and bigger in the States just because the States are just a bigger country. I, for one, would like diversity to lead to anarchy, of course, because, he's a racist. He's the best racist. He knows all the racial terms. So, of course, it should lead to anarchy. But my idea of anarchy and this one couldn't be more different. You know what? I would have to agree. No one has any idea what the hell you're talking about half the time, Mr. Monkey Paw. So I would imagine any of your new terms that you invent, like anarchy, whatever that means, we would have no understanding of it. So that's totally cool. Wow. Yeah, that's consistent. Marginalized doesn't always mean for the marginalized. Because, when something's hot, it doesn't always mean it's going to be hot. A does not always equal A. Whatever the devil that means. So it's just this ridiculous pile of crap from these people. And here's just to remind us how some of this got not started, but just some of the people in the video game press. This is from Rock, Paper, Shotgun. John Walker, the founder, claimed Pondsmith's defense of the animals, another gang found in the game of Cyberpunk, was racist. So here we have this white dude blaming the creator, a black dude, of a racist group in his tabletop game. Oh no, the horror. I love an argument that says this can't be racist because the imaginary people we made up made the decisions. Okay. The criticism attracted the attention of Mike, the creator of the Cyberpunk RPG, on which the game is based. If I wasn't heavily involved, I would be able to get more done. As it is, I barely have a life. As for the animals, the whole freaking point is that they think of themselves as powerful, dangerous, wild animals. You'd have thought the lady named Sasquatch would have given them a clue. So Mike's saying, hey, they think they're animals. They don't think they're, this racial group, although you could argue they are, because if you are trying to be an animal, you are reverse anthropomorphizing yourself as an animal. And that has racial properties as well. But he's not saying racial. He's just saying, hey, they think they're animals. They think they're stronger, more powerful, more dangerous. They're wild. That's the gang. That's the point of the gang. You could interpret that as racist, but you'd be missing the point. He'd go on to describe Pondsmith as making a bad argument regarding racist tropes. Extraordinary work by the overnight Twitter goblins, those who spent most of their waking lives screeching about anti-white racism, suddenly changing their worldviews and believing it impossible that a person of color can make a bad argument regarding racist tropes. Well, he's not actually making that argument. He's calling them wild animals, a different organism, a different species, humans masquerading as these cybernetic, souped-up animals who are powerful and dangerous. They are a gang amongst the many factions in cyberpunk. It's not, we're so cool and awesome because we have spots on our skin or we have ears that are like animal ears. No, it's we're so cool and awesome because we have huge muscles and we can kill you very easily. We are wild animals, which is the name of the group, the Animals. But of course, he's talking about racism, guys. Anyway, I can keep going on about this topic. It's so ridiculous that all it takes is one overly sensitive twit who doesn't know what he's talking about and then changes his stripes the next time because he feels like it. Nothing is sacred. Nothing makes sense. Nothing has a direction. It's all up in the air. Postmodernist nonsense. And this is what we're dealing with in the gaming sphere of tabletop games. Crazy stuff. Thanks for listening. Have yourself a great day.